Welcome back to another episode of the Ghosted Podcast. I am excited today to talk about another fun survey that came out about something called ethical sexploration. If you've been doing any Googling around in the dating relationship sex hookups world, this might have come up on a Google search. And it basically focuses on trying new things, inviting your date, your partner to join you. Maybe this is something that now we're really post-COVID. People are more open to being exploratory with others. And I have an amazing guest to speak to this topic with me. Ruthie Israeli is here, and she is a relationship and sex therapist who loves helping people live their best lives. What a good mission.
Hi there, Abby. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. And for starters, give a little background. Helping people live their best lives definitely sounds great to me. But what brought you into this line of work and, wanting to work with, I know you mentioned singles and couples in this space.
Sure, thank you. Yeah. So I work primarily with, couples and singles and individuals, and we work just around relationships. And the way I like to think about it is that we are all relational beings, and so we are in relation to the people around us. So,
Hmm.
no one is kind of living alone in a silo. It's like us in relation to maybe our family, or us in relation to the person we're dating, or the person we're maybe just texting, or us in relation to our boss. So what brought me into this was, yeah, I don't know. I think just my own kind of lived experience, and just kind of wanting to really help people just be able to navigate relationships and get a little bit more clarity. I know your podcast is called Ghosted, so we want to kind of clear that up a little bit, right? Yeah. So that's kind of
Awesome.
what I do, and I really kind of sit with people trying to help them navigate, what other situationships or relationships that they're kind of going through, and make sense of it for them, and and for both of them, really. Yeah.
Right. And I think sometimes people forget that obviously our whole lives are ruled by these relationships, and I notice too sometimes when people have unresolved relationships in other parts of their lives, it can make dating really hard. I'm sure you pick up on that all the time, right?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times people come in because I always ask, I say, are you coming in as like a one or a plus one? Because the question really is that, a lot of people want to come in and start a relationship, and you can start a relationship even if you're not in a relationship. So what it means is that you can come in and start to get a sense of like, what are these barriers that are blocking you from getting into the relationship that you want to be in? And it could be
Hmm.
issues with your family of origin, your mom or your dad, or could have been somebody else, or there could be a past trauma, but usually, or it could even just be some stressors at work, really. So all of these things, people want to kind of get the head start on that. And then also, if
Yeah.
there's some, sexual issues, people might start on their own first. It's a little more comfortable to start by yourself and then invite someone else into that space.
Right. And are there challenges you've noticed just at the start of this year? Anything that you see people are dealing with more than other things? Or do you feel like the challenges kind of stay consistent?
Well, I think everything's kind of cyclical, right? And so like January 1st, right? The gyms like, or January 2nd, the gyms start to like, fill up. So the therapy practices also start to fill up where people kind of want to come back in.
Right.
And we're still in January, and so people really kind of want to get the first thing to getting started on a relationship is getting started on the relationship with yourself and understanding yourself better so that you can be that best person when you show up, even being the best person when you show up on a date. So you really kind of want to start with that work. And so that's what we're seeing, people really wanting to kind of, get towards their goals, especially post
Hmm.
pandemic. People have been hibernating for a little
Right.
while.
I know. I feel like at least the majority of people are out of hibernation by now. Are
Yeah.
you getting that sense too?
Yeah, exactly. They're out and about and they're just having to keep up. And so it's kind of like, wait, we're
Right.
full on again.
Well, and a lot of people I've noticed who are coming to me, maybe they were like they went through a divorce during the pandemic, and then they have really taken a break from dating. So now they're like, how do I even approach this? Like, how do I even begin? And I'm like, I'm not going to throw you on a date right away. As a matchmaker, I'm like, we'll take our time. I love what you said about dating yourself first.
Yeah.
But I'm curious too, how do you approach that situation of the people, or what advice would you give of people who are like, okay, I'm entering a whole new dating world and things have really changed even from 4 years ago or 10 years ago or 20 years ago.
Yeah. So I think first and foremost, everything has changed for everyone. So whatever rules used to exist don't really exist in the same way. Some of them are there
Hmm.
and some of them aren't. And so really kind of I think it's fair game right now. I think it's kind of the best. Well, how they say yeah, people want to invest while the market's low. Like this is the best time to get into the dating pool because everyone is kind of like either re-entering as a new person. A lot of people have gone on these journeys during the pandemic. And so the dating pool that you might have dated before isn't the same pool of people any longer.
Hmm.
Um, and, vice versa. And people that have been kind of out of it, well, a lot of people have been out of it. So you just got a divorce, you haven't dated in 5, 6 years, maybe longer. Well, guess what? A lot of people haven't dated in 3 years.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it's getting a good vibe this year of people who are like, ooh, okay, I'm finally ready. I'm putting myself out there. I know I have not even been able to keep up with the amount of single people who are wanting me to match make them, which is a good problem to have.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
people are ready.
Yeah, people are really ready. I've, been living in New York City most of my life, and all these people who were kind of like floating around in the sort of singles community there were trying to sort themselves out. And suddenly, like clockwork, like lots of engagements this year because people are like, wow, I am really ready.
Hmm.
And pretty goal oriented.
Yeah, I like it. They're thinking about more than just is this person physically attractive or not, which is nice.
Yeah,
Good change.
exactly.
And, something else that I found another interesting survey, we take all these with a grain of salt as a former journalist over here, but I love finding these interesting facts and talking about them. So there was one is from YouGov America found that 25% of Americans are open to non-monogamy, which is mostly millennials and Gen Z, as we would expect. Is that kind of in line of what you're seeing in that world?
I would say it really is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say definitely. You're seeing more and more people opening up their relationship, going into E&M, ethical non-monogamy. Being a millennial myself, it's certainly definitely our generation of people that are thinking about that. I think the family system has changed very differently than it used to be, and so I think the
Hmm.
family system was kind of, it used to be two people getting together. More traditionally, it was a heterosexual couple. Then we have all kinds of couples. So the family system would get together for the sake of having kids. And a lot of people are not necessarily wanting that lifestyle anymore, whether it's for, their own climate change issues or ethical issues or whatnot. That's not something that
Hmm.
they're currently, interested in. So it raises questions about, what they want in the relationship. Um, and so
Right.
I think something just to explain about ethical non-monogamy and the way that it works is that people enter it for really different reasons. And so what I mean is that some people might enter it just for kind of fun and play, but a lot of
Hmm.
people are entering for real serious reasons. So, for example, one person in the couple might be asexual, and someone might just not be able to perform sexually, and they love each other, and they're like, "Should we get married? We want to be with each other. How do we make this work?" And the idea of
Hmm.
keeping a relationship open really, really allows for people to be together who, under kind of more traditional circumstances, wouldn't have been.
Hmm. That's a really interesting point of what you were just talking about, because I think a lot of people take it as, oh, you just want to sleep with everybody, and that's all it's about. And I think maybe sometimes that's what some run into on the dating apps, from what I have heard.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it seems like being
Sorry, go
more
ahead.
thoughtful about it, obviously, probably happens more often than not, especially when it's called ethical non-monogamy.
Exactly. And don't get me wrong, you'll come across, people come across on the dating apps where people are not as clear about that, and that is really
Hmm.
problematic. You
Yeah.
might find yourself on a date and find out that the person's married. I mean, how shameful is that? So that's
Right.
certainly not okay. People need to be super clear and upfront about that and explain kind of their intention. But it is becoming more and more quote unquote popular for all kinds of reasons. Just yeah, some is just to kind of like spice up the relationship a little bit after time, particularly if people are in longer term relationships and their plans are not to have kids, and so it can
Hmm.
feel monotonous potentially, and so trying to figure out ways to take that excitement with somebody else and then bring it back to the couple.
Right. And this whole idea that you're with one person for your whole entire life, I think a lot of people are finally starting to be like, wait, like, where did that even come from? Where did we get this idea? Because it hasn't always been this way. So I think we're kind of going back to, oh, we don't have to just follow. One and one is two.
Yeah. Well, I think a bigger kind of reasoning maybe to understand a little bit about what's happening. And so I think there will probably be a trend of more non-monogamous relationships. I think it's going to boom, and then I think it's going to regress back a little bit. So that's my prediction. I don't know if that'll be
Hmm.
true or not, but I think
Ooh.
mostly we'll see what happens. But I think
We'll check back in.
check back in. Yep. Um, but I think what's really going on is that a lot of the way that people have relationships now is they have sex with a lot of partners, and before you get married, you're exploring, you're trying, you're learning about yourself, you're learning all about that stuff. And then what
Hmm.
happens is you get married, and it's like, okay, cut off. Where in previous generations, right, you kind of had one partner for your whole life, maybe two partners for your whole life. Now, some people have had, 5, 10, 100, 120 partners, right? And then they're told, wait a second, you've got to kind of change the genre here. You got to change
Hmm.
your preference. And I do see, clients that are struggling with trying to figure out, hey, I love this person, mad about this person, don't want anyone else in my life, but also missing all that sex I used to have.
Right. And I'm sure it's hard to go from that, from changing that. And, I like that you pointed out that more people are having more sex or more partners throughout their lives. I wonder if part of me thinks that could be due to we just have access to more people now through dating apps. Do you think there are any other factors at play?
Well, I think obviously, uh, the sexual revolution, birth control, all of that stuff has changed, right? Like,
Yeah.
has changed the lives for a lot of people. I don't know what it will look like, now that in the times that we're living right now with, abortion and all of that stuff that's happening. But I think, I,
Hmm.
I think that that's been a big part of it is having that freedom. And people are kind of choosing for themselves more so than kind of choosing for some other reason. Right. So they're kind of just, getting in touch with what's going to work for them. And they're having a lot more,
Right.
yeah, a lot more experience. And I think that's the struggle for a lot of people, especially with dating, which is like, wait a second, you've got to quiet down the noise around you, kind of get a little Buddhist like, quiet everything around you and focus on that one person who's in front of you. And that means for conversation, but that also means sexually. You know, it's not going to be great sex the first time you're having sex with someone. You just got to know the person, right? It may be magical and amazing, but also you might be just learning about each other's bodies. And so you can't compare that, with all this other stuff that you've been having potentially. So I think that can be confusing for people, especially in the beginning of relationships. A lot of times people say, like, oh, we're sexually not compatible. So therefore, this isn't going to work. And I don't really believe in non-compatibility sexually. I think if two people like each other, love each other, care about each other, sex is kind of the easier thing to fix and so to speak, right? To
Hmm.
like improve on and get better at, as opposed to sort of saying, well, that's not going to work.
Right. And I think that is such a good point. It's all kind of goes back to what I talk to my singles about, on a first date. I don't want you to be swept off your feet. Just like you were saying, the first time you have sex, I also don't want you to be swept off your feet, So it's like all of this takes work. And it's better if that relationship grows slowly and it's stable and it's not this scene out of a rom-com. Which, if you listen to this podcast all the time, I'm never going to stop saying this because people, I think, need to hear it every week, if not every other week. So I think that is a really interesting idea too of you can fix sexual compatibility because a lot of the singles who come to me are worried about that. And I'll ask people like, do you have specific preferences, anything like that? But really, in my mind, and tell me what you think too, it all comes down to having good communication about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think good communication is really important, and I think, well, the key secret we say kind of in the sex therapy field is willingness. Do you have
Mm,
willingness? And if both parties have willingness, then you can work from there. And what I mean about willingness is that this willingness is not is like this willingness to maybe create desire, maybe not create desire, or willingness to have sex. And I hope it's okay to sort of give this example, but the way that I like to think about it is,
Yeah.
people who want to, you self-pleasure, right? Masturbation. You might just feel in the mood, or you might not feel in the mood at all and decide to start masturbating. There's a willingness to do that. Once you get started, you might feel aroused, you might feel desire. That's a possibility. And
Hmm.
so, or not at all. But there's a willingness to get started. Most people who kind of get started, right, they end up feeling that arousal. And so that's just the willingness to start. So a lot of people think, oh, you've got to have just the right mood, and you've got to feel all this tingling feeling, or you need to be aroused to get started. Well, that's really not fair, because that's like three steps ahead. All you really need is willingness.
Hmm. Ooh, okay. I like it. You're dropping all kinds of knowledge, Ruthie. I appreciate
I don't know if I'm giving you
it.
too much too fast, but yeah.
No, it's good. It's all good. Hey, people, if you're listening, take some notes. And also, quick plug, if you're not watching us on YouTube, come and see what Ruthie and I look like. We're having some fun. We were joking before this we can get up and dance, but we don't have to actually do that.
Aw,
I know, maybe at the end. We'll see.
yeah.
We'll see. So this whole idea that we started talking about of the ethical sexploration,
Mm.
it's almost just like a fun term, almost I will say kind of clickbaity term,
Hmm.
just to kind of explain what we've been talking about. And then we were kind of talking about too that people, want to experiment more, which, if you want to, go ahead in a safe way. But what would you say are like the ethical components of this sexploration that people should think about?
Yeah. So first is like, if you're gonna, kind of delve into this, and this is something that you want, one is like, sit down with your own individual therapist and sort of think about like, well, what do you want out of this? What do you want to explore sexually? And then we can think about the ethical components. So if you're in a relationship with someone, the first thing is you're gonna have a conversation with that person and see if opening it up is okay. Just because you want it doesn't mean that you get it. That's going to
Hmm.
be something that's going to have to be talked about with, as a couple. The other thing is, and I say this all the time, is that some couples, they're just not a candidate, or not a candidate right now for sexploration, with
Hmm.
another party, right? They can explore sexually with themselves, but if that relationship is not, that is not fundamentally sound, and the foundation is not solid, like rock solid, you cannot invite a third into that relationship. That is a recipe for
Right.
disaster. And so it's kind of like people who are like, our relationship's going terrible, let's have a kid. No, that's not the right time. Um, so you need to be in good standing. You need to have kind of a good relationship, good communication skills. Um, Sex doesn't have to be necessarily be great, because it could be that that's the issue you're trying to solve for. So that's understandable.
Hmm.
So that's the first thing, is making sure, if you're in a couple, that everything's above board that way. And then figuring out why. Is it just for the sake of, nothingness, really? Like, is it just or is it because, there's something that you've been thinking about for a long time that's meaningful to you? There's something that you've
Hmm.
really wanted to try sexually, and you've never been able to try it, and that's important to you. Uh, you know, One of my mentors likes to say she works with much older couples, and there are a lot of people that come in their late 80s who are like, I would like to do this thing sexually before I die. And that is really important to them. And so if it's on
Hmm.
your before you die list, yes, of course you should be exploring this. But
Yeah.
really making sure, like, why do you want to do this? And what are the risks, the risk benefit analysis of that?
Hmm. And I do notice too, the older single people who come to me, they always bring up their sex lives. I don't even have to ask.
Is that
It's
right?
always like, yes, they're always like, I want someone who has a good sex drive, who wants to do this, that, and the other thing. And then, people maybe more like 30s and 40s, they're not just gonna necessarily volunteer that information.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to just speak to your singles who you're talking about right now,
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
one of the things I'd like to say to them, if you're listening, I want you to hear this, is that sex drive and desire change over time. And so you can have some really, really hot years and some really quiet years. And it doesn't mean that it's like all or nothing in the beginning. So it's kind of like a, like maybe like a wave, if you can imagine it that way, where
Hmm.
for whatever reason, things get really sexy. For whatever reason, maybe some stress at work happens, or there's issues with you have kids, or other things happen. And so there's like a few years that might not be so great, and a few years that might be spectacular, and then a few years that's great, and then a few years that's not so great. And that's kind of part of a relationship. Like relationships ebb and
Hmm.
flow, and you've got to stay the course of it. So just because it's like, oh, well, you're having some bad sex now or some bad communication now, doesn't mean that that's a red flag and it's over. See where it goes.
Right. I think we're all so quick to cut people off. If they make one wrong move or, do something we're not happy with, oh, we're like, okay, it's all over. At least I noticed that from people who are dating.
Yes, the people that are dating, it's basically, it's all over you see on TikTok all the time. I get these TikToks all the time. They sort of say, right, what are the flags? Right. And I'm
Hmm.
like, why do we need so many flags? Like, why can't we just sort of see where things go?
Yeah,
Give it
right. I
chance,
mean,
give
if
it
there's
time.
something horrible,
Yeah,
like, definitely take note and do what you need to do. But yeah, you're so
certainly.
right. It's like I will have someone write someone off for how they ate their food on the date, or, oh, well, he didn't immediately pay for the bill. He like fumbled for his wallet for a second. And I'm like, this is why you might be still single.
Exactly. So just to kind of take things slow, and I think Abby, you're right that right there are certainly red flags that are safety concerns and things like that that people should be paying attention that are really worrisome. But by and
Yeah.
large, I think the flags protect us. They keep us from
Hmm.
like intimacy and getting really connected to somebody and vulnerable.
That's fair. Yeah. So it might be, a sign that, are my walls up just a little too much?
Just a little too much, yeah, could be.
So another thing I wanted to ask you about is communicating your sexuality.
Mm,
Because I do, even though I just work with opposite sex couples, I have people who identify as bisexual, pansexual, you name it. And it's always an interesting topic of when do you bring this up? Because some people it really matters. Some people they don't care. I'm curious, like how you navigate that with people.
sure, yeah. So I work with everyone on the full gamut. I work with the queer community, the straight community, everything under the sun, trans,
Yeah.
you name it. Sorry. So, so I work. I'm gonna say that again. Anyways,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Start from the beginning. You're good.
yeah. So I work with the queer community and the straight community and kind of pretty much everyone under the sun. As long as you're a human, I work with you. And little doggies are allowed to sometimes. But I would sort of say is that, it's a really interesting question that you're asking. I think it's really important for people to be as upfront, as, upfront as possible early on,
Hmm.
and to get that message across clearly, so the person across from you kind of knows what they're getting into, and see if you're compatible. Like, why waste each other's time? Um, you know, that said, there's certain parts of someone's life that they might want to not share on a first or second or third date. But I think in terms of sexuality and sexual preference, I think that's pretty important. Because if that's not if it's not there, and if it's not going to work for the other person, um, then I think that's I don't think it's fair. I think it's not ethical, actually, in some ways, right? To kind of just, if you're presenting if you're presenting as gay and you're really bi, or if you're presenting as bi and you're straight, all kinds of different ways, um, it's just not fair to the person who's across from you.
Right. Yeah, I would completely agree too, is, it's something to definitely share early on. And even a lot of the dating apps now have a place where you can put that. So
Exactly.
I'm glad.
Yeah. Yeah. You can put your pronouns. You can put you can put your sexuality. I think it's great that they have that, actually. Yeah.
Hmm. And, working with people all across the LGBTQ plus spectrum,
Mhm.
do you notice any unique challenges, maybe facing that community versus the straight community? Obviously there are things that I'm sure in all of our minds we can see could be different. But anything you notice that's unique?
Yeah. I mean, I think. I think right now the challenges are, uh, particularly in the trans community, because they're kind of just getting, they're kind of getting off the ground. And so
Hmm.
even having some of those things to be able to flag in apps is brand new. I think
Yeah.
Hinge did this last week or a few weeks ago, right? So
Yeah, it's very
it's
recent.
very, very recent, yeah. And so I think, you know, being able to kind of wear that flag proudly, like being able to sort of say, this is who I am, right? And then I think that it's amazing and incredible because I think then it allows for like-minded people to find each other, and people who are kind of interested in that, to find each other. Other, just challenges in general facing that community. I think, a lot of, a lot of my, people that I speak with, they worry just about, the overturning of Roe v. Wade and what that means for the queer community and what could come in the
Hmm.
future. And so there are some worries around, you know, is same-sex marriage going to remain where it remains? And so it does frighten people a little bit. It is still
Yeah,
there a bit of a worry. Yeah,
understandable.
yeah,
And I think in the end, it's like as single people, we all face similar challenges. It's a lot of the same things. Like, yes, you might feel like you have your unique challenges, but I always like to remind listeners that we've all faced kind of the same things as we've been dating. And, never compare yourself to other people's dating journey, but it's like a lot of the same things that I hear day in and day out from all the people who are like, please match make me instead of making me go on the dating apps.
mm, yeah, exactly. And I think, right, that's right. Everyone is going through their own challenges, and each community of people has their own challenges. So straight people have
Yeah.
their challenges, men have their challenges, women have their challenges. Queer men or women or non-binary individuals have their challenges, and they're and they are a lot of the same, right? They're clustered a lot of the
Hmm.
same, but then within that, there's everyone's own unique struggle that they're carrying kind of with them, day in and day
Yeah.
out. And that's the work, right? Which is to understand what is that little unique struggle that they're holding, and how do they become kind of their best self, right? With that, because the other things around
Hmm.
them, maybe they can control it, maybe they can't, but it's like the who they are in that, and making themselves better, that they always have that opportunity for.
Right. And someone who's listening who's like, okay, I want to take a step to become a better version of myself. What might be an option of a step in a good direction?
Yeah. So first is figuring out, okay, why do you want to be a better version of yourself, right? Like for what purpose? Like what do you want at
Yeah.
the end of it, right? Like at the end, once you become that version, what will it look like? So ask yourself, right? Maybe even write it down. When I become a better version of myself, it will look like this, and that, and the other, right? Um,
Hmm.
and then the question is well, then how do you get there? Right? Because now you know what it is. So we're going to try and figure out how to get there. And so for someone, it could be like, well, I run really anxious before I go on a date. I get super anxiety, jitters or whatever. So maybe for that person, it's like, maybe a meditation for a minute or two could be the right answer. Or,
Hmm.
um, you know, taking a couple of deep breaths or something like that. And for someone else, like, if what is the thing that they want to kind of work on, it could be really super different. It could be someone who stays inside and isn't so social, and kind of the better version of themselves is to go to social events, or to be around people. And so, okay, so what are the steps that person's going to need to take to do that? um,
Hmm.
Figuring out what causes them anxiety about getting out there, or maybe the step for them is just finding the event and not even going, and just knowing it's there that day, and then the next time going.
Right. And that brings up another theme that I have noticed too, like over the past few months, of a lot of people with social anxiety wanting to put themselves out there in terms of dating, but not even knowing where to begin. Um,
Yes, absolutely. So many people I see have this struggle. Some
mhm,
people are extroverts, and America rewards extroverts. And if you're not an extrovert, it can be really, really difficult. And the reality is we
mhm.
don't need a world of extroverts. It doesn't work. It won't work for society.
I think that'd be
uh,
a little crazy as an extrovert myself.
yes, exactly. And so the question that a lot of people are struggling with is, hey, how do I get out there? Where do you even begin? And I really feel like there needs to be like some real help on this, which is kind of like, I personally am a person who likes to do a lot of things. So I always
Hmm.
ask my clients like, well, what do you like doing? And sometimes they're like, well, I don't know what you mean. Give me some examples. And I've learned, I'm like, I can not give you examples because what I like and what you like are so different. And
Yeah.
I challenge your listeners to write down what are things in their lives that they like doing. Is it reading a book? Is it is yoga something that they like? Is climbing something that they like? Swimming? I have no idea what they like, right? It could be something that I never thought of. I don't know, sewing. I have no idea. And whatever the things that they like are, it's to then go push themselves to find it and do it. Because I guarantee whatever it is you like, there is some niche group out there that all you have to do is do a Google search and you'll find your people. I think it's about
Right?
as simple as that. The actual getting out there for people who don't do that is really hard because I think people
Hmm.
struggle with what do I like, you know? And
Yeah.
I don't know if people have had time before to like things, right? I mean, especially if a lot of people who are single in their 30s and 40s, um, they've been busy before with school and getting their career on
Hmm.
track and all this dating taking up so much time. So the question is, where's the like, what do I like?
Right. And maybe it's finding a new hobby or trying
Yeah,
something different.
yeah,
And I
exactly.
love that recommendation. I definitely tell a lot of my singles, I'm like, if you want to get in better shape, go to a workout class. Yes, you could hire a trainer, but go to a class and meet people and mingle, especially if you're a guy. It's all women in there if you're looking to date women.
Great advice.
So, right? And something else I actually did over the weekend with a client sometimes to deal with the social anxiety is we'll do practice dates before they even go out.
Oh, I
So
love
I'll
that.
do, one where I am there as the awkward third party on their date, giving them feedback, letting them know how they're doing. And, this client over the weekend, I just saw him afterwards. He's like, wow, I just did that. I haven't been on a date in 6 years and I thought I couldn't even make it here. So, if you're feeling that way, just know that you can put yourself out there, or even like Ruthie, you said, just say, oh, this event's happening, and you can start there and don't even attend.
And don't even attend, yeah, and know that you may go next time or two times from now.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
just knowing that it's there, right? Like it's like people who have things on their to-do list and it's there for years, but eventually they get to it. Okay, we don't want you to be doing this for years, whoever's out there
Yeah,
listening.
hopefully not.
but but be kind to yourself, right? If you haven't been going out in a long time, it's gonna take some time, and definitely don't start in a club or a bar. That doesn't. I mean, maybe if that's where you want to start in the deep end of the pool, but start small, like you said. Exercise class sounds great.
Right. And maybe you just go. Maybe you don't even talk to anybody. It's just being around humans.
Yeah, who says you got to talk to anyone?
So exactly. So before we go, I want to make sure people have a way, Ruthie, to connect with you if they're curious to get to know you better. Maybe they want to follow you on social media. Give us the plugs of where people can get more Ruthie in their lives.
Great. Thank you so much, Abby. It's really been super fun chatting with you, and I've really enjoyed this. But yeah, you can find
Awesome.
me RuthieIsraeli.com. That is my website. And also I'm, relationship therapist on Instagram handle. That's my Instagram handle. And yeah, I am a therapist. I work with clients, in New York and Los Angeles. Those are my two cities that I work with where I'm licensed. And then I do consulting for people who live in the states in between in this, great place.
Love it. Well, hopefully you guys will reach out to Ruthie. We will put that all in the show notes so you can find her info. And then anything else, any other parting words of wisdom we didn't get to touch on? I know we just scratched the surface, but anything else you want to impart to our single listeners?
Yeah, I think kind of my motto is, right, be kind to yourself and then be kind to the person in front of you. So just remember that.
Hmm.
Be kind to yourself and be kind to the person in front of you, especially when you're going on that next date.
Okay. Take that to your next date. You can do it. Thank you, Ruthie. Have a great day.
Great, thank you. Appreciate it.